How Alice Became Queen, Part 1. So my spiritual journey started in 2014 when I was at a festival looking beautiful with feathers in my hair and beautiful clothes, and I got sucked into a hypnosis show where I was asked to go to a childhood memory. And I went to a memory where I was 4 years old, playing in the garden with my imaginary friend that I used to have. Only this time, I wasn't looking through the eyes of my 4-year-old self, but through the imaginary friend. And I realized that the way I looked with the feathers in my hair and the beautiful clothes is that I looked exactly the same as the imaginary friend I used to have. And so I realized that I, from the future, from age 27, was the imaginary friend I had when I was 4. And so I was like, whoa, this is a time travel experience. Like, this is a time loop. So I made this painting and I gave myself the advice in this experience to never stop playing. And this changed my whole life. And I'll tell you in the next part why. How Alice Became Queen, Part 2. So after I had this time travel experience where I connected with my imaginary friend and my 4-year-old, telling myself to never stop playing, something opened up in my consciousness and I started seeing energies everywhere. Energies coming out of my hands and my fingers, but also around people and trees, and I saw it everywhere. It was such a mess and it made such an impact on me, so I made this painting. And I did not know what it was. Like, I didn't know what the fuck was energy, and I had no one around me to tell me it was energy. So I was like, what the fuck is happening to me? And I told my friends, and my friends were like, well, Mapaya, like, maybe you should go see a doctor because, you know, we don't see this. So I got really scared and I was like, whoa, am I going crazy? Like, what's happening to me? And then my arms also started reacting to the energy and started moving around. And especially at night, I started getting like possessed and I woke up with my arms moving around or my body moving around. And so I got really, really, really scared. And so I went to see a doctor. And I'll tell you in the next part what happened when I went to the doctor. How Alice Became Queen, Part 3. So after I started seeing energies coming out of my hands and my fingers and my arms reacting to it, I thought I was going crazy and I got really scared. So I went to see the doctor. I was like, doctor, I'm seeing all these things and my arms move around, especially at night. And so the doctor was like, well, maybe you've got carpal tunnel syndrome. And let's get your brain scanned with an MRI scan to see if there's something there. So I went to the hospital and I told my same story to the hospital, and I just realized that they were like looking at me like, what the are you talking about? Like, we have like our if this then that system, and what the fuck is this? Like, we can't help you, like, you know. And so I felt like, you know, that the safety of the system, of the doctor and the hospital and the authority I gave authority to wasn't like, they didn't see me, they didn't listen to me. So I felt all alone. I was like, I'm all alone in this. So I have to figure this out by myself. And so what I did is I started traveling all alone. And I'll tell you more about that in the next part. How Alice Became Queen, Part 4. So after I went to the doctor and the hospital because I saw energy, but they couldn't help me, I was really scared because no one understood me. And I was like, well, I'm not going to a mental hospital here, like, that. So I'm gonna pack my bag and I'm gonna start travel the world alone to seek for answers and figure this out of what the is happening to me? But I had no idea where to go. So there was just one sign that I got, and that was this vision that I saw of the all-seeing eye and 2 pillars and a checker floor. And it made such an impact on me that I made that painting as well. And so I looked up the meaning of the all-seeing eye because I didn't know. And I saw it was connected to Horus, the sun god of Egypt. So I was like, okay, Egypt, let's go to Egypt. So I really became like Alice in Wonderland all alone in like this new world, trying to read and find symbols, finding my breadcrumbs of my path and looking for answers. And I'll tell you more about what happens next in the next part. How Alice Became Queen, part 5. So after I knew I had to travel alone because the hospital couldn't help me because I was seeing energies, I was very afraid because I even saw my arms transforming into machine parts or energetic tools. But so it was super, super scary. And I was spiraling in fear until I realized okay, so this is not working. No one can help me here. So I'm gonna be like Alice in Wonderland. I'm in this unknown world. Things are happening to me that I don't know what the fuck is this. So I'm gonna go from curiosity and being playful because I've remembered, never stop playing. This is the energy from which I will create this journey from. So I went to South Africa first, where I started getting out of the matrix. I started living with amazing people who lived all out of the matrix, training donkeys. And that really opened me up even more. And I met witches and wizards. And they told me, Mapaya, you see energies and your arms, that they move around and all the things, is because they change the quantum field. And what happens next, I will tell you in the next. How Alice Became Queen, part 6. So I knew I had to go to Egypt because I had seen this vision with the all-seeing eye, which led me to Horus and led me to Egypt. But I went way too soon. I didn't know shit about shit. I was super unconscious and I got super confronted with the huge shadows of mine and karma that was in my system. Because what happened there was that I started dating a guy there. And he wanted to get married with me within 1 week. And so I was like, what the fuck is happening here? And I found out that in Egypt, and this is actually really sad, but they are not allowed to go outside of the country without an invitation or without getting married with someone outside of the country. So I felt super betrayed and manipulated. And so this was super intense as well. So I made this painting out of it. And I actually had to flee from this guy in a country where I didn't speak the language and everything is corrupt. So it was super scary. But I flee back to Holland, where I'm from. Whew. And I got saved there. So what happens next on my adventure, I will tell you in the next part. How Alice Became Queen, part 7. Okay, so after I escaped this adventure in Egypt, I was working on this bracelet to protect myself because I was like, I need some protection here. And I made this Eye of Horus bracelet. It's really cool because it's kinetic. It moves on the movement of your wrist to protect myself. I also sell them now. And I'm super proud of it. So I was now like, okay, where to go next, right? I was back in Holland and I got a message from a friend who found a copy of a portrait of mine painted by Sander Bos in Alice in Wonderland style in a shop in Australia. So a copy of this painting, which is me in Alice in Wonderland style, because I'm such a fan of Alice in Wonderland, because I'm Alice, got found in a shop in a town in Australia by another friend who was traveling there. So I knew I had to go to Australia next. So I went there. And what happens there, I'll tell you in the next part. How Alice Became Queen, part 8. Okay, so after a friend of mine found a copy of this painting in Australia, I knew I had to go to Australia. And the first person that I meet at that town where the shop was, where they sold a copy of that painting, this first person I meet there is a girl and her name is Alice. And she invites me to stay at her place. And her home is a home with all like different doors. And she made one small little door and a mushroom. And so she had this one big Alice in Wonderland house. So this whole painting got manifested into my travels. Can you imagine? I was like, whoa, art portals, super powerful. They're like, art is such a super powerful manifestation tool. So this is how I started waking up to the power of art, to the power of jewelry, to the and how manifestation works. And with that also how energy works. So what happens next, I'll tell you in the next part. How Alice Became Queen, part 9. So after I met Alice in Australia, I realized that I was sent to a place where the Aboriginals used to go when they needed healing. So it's a place in Australia where the energy is like a vortex, where the spirit realm is very connected to the 3D realms. So if you are someone like me who was already seeing energies, everything started to blow up now. And I started getting really connected to my guides. And I experienced such deep magic that at its peak, I had chickens giving me orders, telling me what to do. I was like, well, I'm not going to listen to chickens here. Like, what the fuck am I doing? And then a book fell out on a page saying, are the chickens talking to you? Are you listening? So I was like, okay, I'm gonna listen to what the chickens tell me. And the chickens guided me through, they were like part of my guides. And my guides had a very important message for me. Something so important that I couldn't miss it. And what it is, I'm gonna share with you in the next part. How Alice Became Queen, part 10. So my spirit guides had a very important message for me. And the message was that I got sexually abused at age 4. At the same age that I had my time travel loop experience. And I told myself to never stop playing because I was really scared then. But I didn't know. It was so painful that it got so blocked. It got completely in my subconscious and my unconscious. And so I slowly had to learn and to heal and to integrate these memories. And I started getting memories back. And I also realized that I now understood why I was attracting crazy men. Because it wasn't just only this one. There were more of them. And so everything started to make sense now. And I started this healing journey of feeling through all the like emotions and energies that were in my system, in the subconscious. And I'm getting now 2 layers of the unconscious as well, to actually heal this. And what happens next, I'll tell you in the next part. How Alice Became Queen, part 11. So after I knew that I got sexually abused at the age of 4, I started my healing journey, feeling through the suppressed pain, working with shamans and healers, doing constellation work, doing shadow work, doing archetypal work, diving into astrology. And while doing the inner work, I actually started learning about the energy world. And the questions that I had of all the energy that I could see coming out of my hands started becoming sense. Because now I could feel like, oh, this trauma or pain here feels like this and has a certain color and has a certain shape. And this belief here is connected to this trauma. And so I started understanding that I could use my arms to clear the energy field of someone. And so when Alice becomes queen, it's because you're doing the inner work, and from doing the inner work, you receive the gifts, your spiritual gifts that you find in no book and no teacher can tell you, but you doing your inner work. And so what happens next, I'll tell you in the next part. How Alice became queen, part 12. So your wounds are super holy, right? When you actually integrate it and feel it, then you will get the answers and the wisdom that you're seeking, that you find in no book, that no teacher can tell you, but you doing the inner work. And from doing the inner work, receive your gifts that you can share with the rest of the world and stand in your purpose and build a new system. So this is how Alice became queen, by feeling through the wounds and doing the inner work. It's like in chess, where the pawn reaches the other side of the chessboard and gets promoted into queen. You now get so connected to your body that you get your answers and your needs and your desires, and so your path, your breadcrumbs, you will find them yourself. So but then the journey of queening just starts to actually listen and implement this. Because if you now don't listen to the messages you get, it's painful, right? That's why I'm creating something amazing. If you want to learn more, check out the next How Alice Became Queen, part 13. So after you felt through the pain and for years and years and years, and you've, have the connection with your body, and you're being promoted as queen, or you're almost there, or you feel you're almost there, and you now want to follow through with your needs and your desires and the messages that you get, while simultaneously also still healing, because healing never stops, right? So we've got still a lot of ancestral and past life trauma and this life trauma, and like you don't even have to have had trauma like me, because everything is trauma because we are raised in a shame-based culture, right? This is super hard. This can be super hard. It's hard. It's difficult. So this is why I wanted to create a mastermind for 2023 for all the Queen Alices out there who are on this journey to start doing this together. Because in a mastermind is where masterful minds are coming together, and we elevate each other and grow. We grow together in a container where we keep each other accountable, and we support each other. So if you want to learn more about this mastermind, stay tuned for the next part, because it's really cool. How Alice Became Queen, part 14. So I'm creating this epic mastermind for all the Queen Alices out there who want to do the queening together in 2023. So remember when Alice fell through the rabbit hole, she came into this room with a checkerboard floor and all these like doors and one little door. And behind that one little door was the Garden of Eden, the high frequency Christ consciousness, amazing frequency, right? But she grew too big and grew too small, and so she couldn't fit through that door, and now she started crying. And so I love this room as a metaphor for manifestation, because if we leave the other doors open out of fear of failure, fear of disappointment, then our manifestation gets a mess. So this mastermind is really to hold each other accountable, to keep that little door open for each other, so that we can actually really step into the manifestation of where we want to go. So if this is for you, then I'm gonna explain a little bit more in the next part. How Alice became queen, part 15, the last part for those who are interested in the mastermind. So this is for those who have gone through the rabbit hole, who have done a lot of healing work already, have a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge, love to interpret the signs and the symbolism of your own sovereignty, but still lack some integration or embodiment, and would love to get support in this. So my expertise is all about to never stop playing, and the playful magical child, the Alice archetype. Because from that frequency that I bring, it's so much easier to shine light on your shadows, and doing shadow work becomes way lighter and easier. So yeah, I'm so excited to share this with you. This is a 6-month commitment minimum, and the investment is your aligned price, which is a really cool concept that I came up with. But there are limited spots available. So if you feel like, yes, this is exactly what I want and what I want to invest in, my time and energy and money, then send me a DM, because spots are limited.